September 20th.
We got shots fired.
A day that rocked Charlotte.
What began as a peaceful protest quickly escalated.
Pure chaos in the streets of uptown Charlotte.
And changed everything.
Some of the protesters are banging on the doors of CMPD headquarters.
A deadly police shooting sparked nights of protests and ignited a dialogue about race in Charlotte.
I'm still committed to the city that I love.
Today, 1 year later, we look ahead as a community heals.
You'll remember last year at this very hour, we had no idea that a police shooting near the university area would reshape the Queen City.
We were just learning what had transpired off of Old Concord Road. Today, dozens gathered hand in hand. They walked the streets of uptown where anger fueled nights of protest in the days that followed. They reflected on how the city has and will continue to move forward.
But it's hard to forget these images. They left an imprint in people's minds across the country. You remember the cars torched, businesses vandalized, police marching in riot gear with National Guard tanks guarding Charlotte streets, clouds of tear gas choking the air. And while police and prosecutors say the shooting was justified, there are many who still question that narrative.
And at the center of the debate, a family grieving 1 year later.
It's been a hard year. It's been a trying year. My children, they're still going through it just as we grieve, as just as any other grieving family would. Losing a loved one.
Of course, we have live team coverage at 6. Brad Berkey live in Uptown, where the scars of the protests can still be seen.
First, though, we begin with Rachel Brown, who is live in North Charlotte at the scene of that deadly shooting. Rachel, you talk with Keith Scott's widow today.
Fred, Sarah, I did. She spoke to us at 3:54 in the afternoon. That is the same time her husband, Keith Scott, was shot and killed 1 year ago today. She said she and her children continue to struggle with his death, and she's upset because she hasn't seen any changes within the department.
It's just been a long and trying year.
With her children standing by her side, Rakia Scott spoke of her husband's killing exactly 1 year ago.
No matter what they say, at the end of the day, my husband didn't deserve to die. September 20th.
Undercover officers were here at the Village Downs apartment complex for an investigation unrelated to Keith Scott when they say they smelled marijuana from his vehicle and noticed a gun. It resulted in a brief standoff, and 43-year-old Scott was shot and killed. Body camera video released months after the shooting shows Scott exit his vehicle with a weapon and disregard officers' repeated commands to drop it. But his wife, Rakia Scott, believes more could have been done to prevent his death. And the lack of training, she says, is what ultimately killed her husband.
It wasn't enough training that day. So better training. Understand that everyone isn't the same. Everyone doesn't respond the same. At the end of the day, my husband had a traumatic brain injury. His injury was the reasoning with his slow reaction.
And there is going to be a vigil held for Keith Scott tonight at 8:30. It's happening at 9400 Lexington Circle and hosted by Charlotte Uprising. Rakia Scott says she will be in attendance. I'm live in the university area tonight. Rachel Brown, NBC Charlotte.
All right, Rachel, thanks for that report.